It started with a gut feeling. It always does, doesn't it? Some imperceptible shift in tone and unusual softness in her voice. When she'd say, "I'll be out for lunch with a friend." The kind of softness you only notice if you've heard the sharp edges before. The ones you thought you'd dulled over years of devotion. Laura and I had been married for 8 years of morning coffees, whispered dreams, and the silent understanding that comes from knowing someone so completely. I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our disagreements, but who didn't? I choked it up to the natural wear and tear of life. That was before the late-night text I accidentally saw while her phone rested on the couch beside me. Can't stop. Thinking about today, the message was from a number I didn't recognize when I asked her about it. She brushed it off with a nervous laugh. "It's nothing, just a group chat. You know how girls can be inaudited," but didn't press further that night. Lying in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, I knew. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. It wasn't until weeks later, when her lunch dates became more frequent and her excuses vaguer, that I decided to act. I'm not proud of it, but I went through her phone. When she left it unattended one afternoon, the texts I found weren't suggestive. They were explicit. Her friend was someone named Eric, and judging by their exchanges, the lunch dates were far more than a quick sandwich and small talk. I felt a rush of nausea and danger, followed by a crushing wave of humiliation. My wife, my Laura, was having an affair. And it wasn't just a fling. These weren't messages of mere physical attraction. They were dripping with emotional intimacy, the kind of connection we used to have, the kind I thought was still ours. For a week, I carried the knowledge in silence, trying to figure out what to do. Confront her, pack my bags, and leave, beg her to explain. I did none of those things. Instead, I did something I've never done in my life. I plotted carefully, methodically. I planned. It started with research through a few social media rabbit holes. I discovered Iyek was a colleague of hers, a sales representative for some company she'd collaborated with on a project he was married to. I found his wife, Christine, on Facebook, a petite brunette with kind eyes and 2 kids under 5. My heart broke for her, but my sympathy didn't deter me from moving forward. The plan came together faster than I expected. First, I hired a private investigator, a grizzled guy named Frank, who had a face like a bulldog and a non-nonsense attitude. Frank's photos confirmed everything, pictures of them leaving a hotel together, arms brushing, faces lit up with laughter. He'd even captured a shot of them kissing in her car. Proof, hard, undeniable proof. Next, I reached out to Christine. My message was simple. "Hi, Christine. This is going to be hard to hear, but I believe your husband, Eric, is having an affair with my wife, Laura. I've attached photos. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this." Her response came an hour later. It was a single sentence: "Thank you for telling me." The ball was rolling now, and I was no longer in control of where it would stop. But I had one last card to play. I wanted Laura to see what her betrayal had wrought, to feel the weight of her choices. So I invited her to lunch. "Let's have a date," I said, forcing a smile. "Just the 2 of us. We haven't done that in a while." She seemed relieved, almost eager. Perhaps she thought my sudden attentiveness was a sign I suspected. Nothing, little did she know it, was the calm before the storm. The day of the lunch arrived. I set the table. Meticulously, a crisp white tablecloth, our finest silverware, and 2 glasses of wine on the surface. It looked like an attempt at rekindling romance in reality. It was a stage, and the centerpiece wasn't flowers, but a manila envelope filled with every damning piece of evidence Frank had gathered. Laura walked in, smiling, her cheeks flushed from her supposed lunch date. She stopped cold when she saw the table, her eyes darting from the envelope to me. "What's this?" she asked, her voice shaky. I didn't answer. I just gestured for her to sit. Reluctantly, she did, her smile now a shadow of what it had been. Moments before, I slid the envelope across the table. "Open it," I said. She hesitated, then complied. Her jaw tightened as she sifted through the photos and printouts of text messages. "I can explain," she stammered. Other voice lacked conviction. "Explain, Elainid." Back in my chair, my voice calm but razor sharp. "Explain what? That you've been lying to me for months, that you've been sneaking around with a married man, that you've been treating our marriage like it's disposable." Tears welled in here. "Yes, it's not like that," she whispered. "Then what is it like, Laura?" I demanded, my voice rising, "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been having your cake and eating it too." She broke down, sobbing, mumbling apologies that meant nothing. I let her cry, let her wallow in the mess she'd created. When she finally looked up at me, her face streaked. With tears, I dropped the next bombshell I've spoken to Christine Isaid. Her eyes widened in horror. You what she knows everything just like I do. You've destroyed not one but two families. Laura, congratulations. At that moment there was knock at the door. Laura's head whipped around, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. I stood and opened it. To reveal Christine. She stepped inside, her face calm but her eyes blazing with anger, and behind her, Eric, Laura's face, went pale. What is this? She whispered. This, I said, is closure. The confrontation that followed was ugly. Christine unleashed years of pent-up frustration on Eric, who stood there stammering like a fool. Laura tried to intervene, but Christine turned on her with the ferocity of a lioness. Don't you dare try to justify this, she snarled. You're a selfish, deceitful. The words she used weren't fit for polite company. Eric finally tried to defend himself, spouting some nonsense about feeling unappreciated at home. I cut him off. Unappreciated? I laughed bitterly. You've got two beautiful kids and a wife who'd move heaven and earth for you, and this is how you repay her by the end of it. Everyone's emotions were fray. Laura and Eric looked like broken shells of the people they were when they walked in. Christine. And I exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement that we both emerged stronger. The fallout was swift. Laura packed her bags and moved out that evening. I filed for divorce the next day. Christine did the same. Eric lost his job when Christine sent their employer copies of the evidence. Laura's reputation took a nosedive as word of the affair spread among our friends and family. They had no one to blame but themselves. As for me, I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, MNS, when getting out of bed felt impossible. But with time, the anger faded, replaced by a quiet determination to rebuild my life. I started therapy, took up running, and reconnected with old friends a year later. I'm happier than I've been in years. I've learned to value myself, to demand honesty and respect from the people in my life. Laura and Eric, last I heard, their relationship didn't survive. The weight of the guilt. Revenge may not be the healthiest of motivations, but sometimes it's the catalyst we need to reclaim our power and reclaim it. I did.
It was a crisp autumn evening when the cracks in my world began to show. My wife, Claire, had been out with her friends or so, she said, leaving me at home with a bottle of wine and an old movie to pass. The time we'd been married for 7 years, long enough to know each other's rhythm, habits and tells. That night something was different. Her voice on the phone had been too bright, her laughter too forced, but I brushed it off, reminding myself not to overthink. She walked through the door just after midnight, giggling like a teenager, sneaking back. After curfew, her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly disheveled, and she carried the distinct scent of someone else's cologne. My stomach churned, but I forced a smile, acting as though nothing was amiss. Kla flopped onto the couch, kicking off her heels, and looked at me with a carefree grin. You're in a good mood, I said, setting down my glass. Yeah, it was a great night, she replied, her voice high-pitched, almost giddy. The girls and I had such a good time. Nothing crazy, just drinks and laughs. I nodded, studying her closely, glad to hear it. As the night wore on, I noticed she avoided my gaze and clutched her phone like a lifeline. Suspicion crept in, but I said nothing. Confrontation wasn't my style. Not yet anyway. Instead, I decided to wait and observe. After all, trust was the foundation of our marriage. Or so I'd believed. The next morning, Claire was soon usually cheerful, humming as she prepared breakfast. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, but she made no move to check it. When she left the room, I couldn't resist. I picked up the phone, heart pounding, and unlocked it. We knew each other's passcodes. One of those little signs of trust that now felt like a cruel joke. The messages were damning. Last night was amazing. One, I can still feel your touch. My vision blurred As I scrolled through the stream of texts from a contact named M, there were photos too, taken in a dimly lit hotel room. Claire laughing, glass in hand, draped across a man. I didn't recognize. My world shattered in an instant. The betrayal was like a physical blow, stealing my breath. I placed the phone back where I'd found it, forcing myself to remain calm. Rage would come later. For now, I needed Claret, a plan. Claire returned to the kitchen. Oblivious to my discovery, she kissed me on the cheek and handed me a plate. Of fegs, her smile as radiant as ever. How could she pretend? Everything was fine after what she'd done. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home, watching, listening, piecing together the extent of her deceit. The one-night stand, as I soon learned, was anything but harmless. It wasn't even a one-time occurrence. Claire and Mem had been meeting for months, stealing moments I thought were ours. The rage simmered beneath my skin, but I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I focused on gathering evidence, documenting everything, texts, photos, even the receipts she carelessly left in her purse. My plan began to take shape, and with it a sense of grim satisfaction. On the surface, I was the same devoted husband. I cooked her favorite meals, laughed at the jokes, and even planned a weekend getaway, just the two of us. Claire seemed relieved, as if my attentiveness absolved her of guilt. Little did she know I was laying the groundwork for her downfall. The weekend trip was my masterpiece. I booked a cabin in the mountains, secluded and picturesque. Claire was thrilled, gushing about how much she needed the escape. I packed our bags, ensuring everything was perfect, even the hammer equipment. A new hobby I'd taken up came along. She didn't question it. The first night was magical, at least on the surface. We drank wine by the fire, reminisced about our early days, and even shared a dance under the stars. But my mind was elsewhere, focused on the culmination of my plan. The next morning, told CLA I wanted to take some photos of the scenery and suggested she sleep in. She agreed, snuggling deeper into the blankets as I grabbed my gear and headed out. Only I didn't take landscape shots. Instead, I set up the cameras in our cabin discreetly, capturing angles that would tell the story I needed. When CLA finally woke, I suggested a hike, claiming I'd found a beautiful spot nearby. She was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed. We spent hours wandering the trails, and for a moment, I almost forgot that betrayal. Almost back at the cabin, Claire's phone buzzed. Incest, Lie glanced at it, her expression shifting. Tune of annoyance. Work stuff, she muttered, dismissing the notifications. But I knew better that evening. I prepared her favorite dinner, pouring her another glass of wine every time hers neared empty. She laughed, carefree, unaware of the storm brewing. When she excused herself to use the bathroom, I took her phone from the counter and sent a single text to him. Let end this. Then I deleted the thread, leaving no trace. By the time we returned home, CLA was back to her usual self, her laughter echoing through the house. But when she reached for her purse, her face went pale. She rifled through it, panic growing with each passing second. Where is it? She muttered, her voice trembling. What's wrong? I asked, feigning concern. My wedding ring, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Oh no, oh, I said, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. When was the last time you had it? She looked at me, her expression a mix of guilt and desperation. I don't know. It must have taken it off somewhere. I hidden it, of course. The ring, a symbol of our commitment, was now a tool in my revenge. The next day, I set my plan into motion. I'd prepared a file meticulously, organized, detailing her affair, in excruciating detail photos, Messages, even the receipts. I left it on the kitchen table, knowing she'd find it when she did the color drain from her face. "What is this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "The truth. I applied something you've been hiding from me for months," she stammered, trying to explain to justify. But I held up a hand, silencing her. "I don't want your excuses. CLA. I want you to leave her." Eyes widened, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, we can work through this. I'll do anything. It's too late," I said, my voice cold. "You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I'd already spoken to a lawyer, ensuring the divorce would be swift and in my favor. The evidence I'd gathered was enough to secure everything: the house, the car, even the savings. Claire had no idea what hit her as she packed her bags, sobbing. I felt no remorse. She destroyed our marriage, our trust. This was justice. In the weeks that followed, I moved on, rebuilding my life piece by piece. Claire, on the other hand, struggled. Mem had ghosted her, leaving her to face the consequences alone. Friends we'd shared distanced themselves, siding with me once they learned the truth. She'd lost everything one evening as I sat on the porch, sipping a glass of whiskey. I reflected on the past few months. The pain of betrayal was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but so was sense of triumph. I'd taken back control, refusing to be a victim. Claire's laughter haunted me no more. It was replaced by the sound of my own laughter, born of freedom, resilience, and the sweet taste of revenge.